Hello everyone and welcome to Brickcats. My channel is for anyone who enjoys custom LEGO creations, likes saving money, and or those looking to get into custom building. Today I am reviewing this amazing RZ-2 A-Wing Starfighter by designer Boestuds. This is a hidden gem that randomly popped up on my Instagram feed one day and I am very glad that I found it. If you're a fan of my channel or are interested in supporting what I do, please consider subscribing, liking this video, or leaving a comment. Each subscription, like, and comment helps others find the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Without any substitutions and buying only from Bricklink, I was getting 5 stores and $78 without shipping and tax, or about $113 with shipping and tax. In my reviews, I offer my opinions on aesthetics and model features, parts issues you might want to look out for, the build experience, the model's integrity, and I close out with my overall impression and pricing information in the conclusion. If you're watching this review, I assume you bought the instructions or are interested in buying them. I also assume a basic level of familiarity with Bricklink's ordering system and LEGO nomenclature. I only use genuine LEGO bricks and I always purchase the instructions. I create these reviews for my own personal enjoyment and in the hopes that my advice will make your experience more enjoyable and or less expensive. Boestuds RZ-2 measures 10 inches long, 6.25 inches wide, and 2.5 inches tall off the stand. While it doesn't come with a display stand, I propped it up on Pixel Dan's universal stand here, which puts it at a maximum of 6 inches off the display surface. I think in my Brickvault RZ-2 review I said that the RZ-2 is smaller than the RZ-1, but that is not correct, and the RZ-2 is slightly longer but thinner. Boestuds has captured that difference very well in this model. You can see how thin it is if I show it at this angle, and especially compared to the RZ-1, for which I have a Jerax right here. So the difference in thickness, if I can get these both on screen. There we go. You can see that the RZ-2 is much thinner. Overall, I really like how the RZ-2 has a noticeably thinner profile and also tapers along basically its entire length from the cockpit to the tip here. Nearly every surface is tiled over with a few exceptions for the wedge pieces. The notch is built into the front of the fighter and the hull shape is outlined by angled tile assemblies right here and here rather than wedges. This approach allows for a wider selection of angles, but the trick is to fill in any gaps and make the subassemblies come together in a good-looking way. In my opinion, the designer has done a very good job with this, and there are only the most minimal gaps in this model along the major seams, as well as 2 very small ones right here, you can see behind there. And again, it's even hard to see through, but along this edge here you can kind of see through a little bit if I get the angle right, which I probably can't, but they're barely noticeable. The concussion missile tubes are represented with these black Technic 1x5 pieces. Dark bluish gray is specified, but I have black, and I think either one works, although dark bluish gray might jive better with this small dark bluish gray piece you see right here. I chose the dark red variant on purpose because it's essentially the inverse of the RZ-1, and the shape of the white stripe down the middle is very accurate. The forward deflector shield pods here and here are included, in the correct position just forward of the angle in the white stripe. The cockpit has a nicely formed seat, as well as some representation of instruments with both printed tiles on the sides and transparent tiles on the front. A control stick would have been nice, but I don't care too much about cockpit interiors in general. The green stripe to either side of the cockpit is a nice cam detail to include as well, and the way that the front edge of the cockpit windscreen nestles in between these 2 tiles here is very nice. The rear of the cockpit is nicely shaped with the trans black slopes representing the small windows on this section of the ship. The upper hull is clean for the most part, but I definitely like the small reddish-brown highlights on either side of the wings near the cannons, as well as near the deflector shields right here. This is a nod to the cobbled-together nature of the Resistance fleet, and it's in keeping with the used nature of the Alliance starfighters. The cannons are connected by a hollow stud and do have a range of motion if you want them to, otherwise they look pretty good. I'm a little hesitant to move this around too much just because this area is a little bit fragile. The fins are properly angled with respect to the vertical, and the engines are both shaped very well and smooth, if not perfectly round. Until that 3x3x2 round brick comes out in dark red, I think this is the best solution for this scale. Of note, the designer credits another designer, Gumbinger, with the engine design. The underside of the fighter is mostly smooth like the top, and the model does have landing gear that folds up into the fuselage. I found these supported the fighter's minimal weight just fine and didn't have any issues with the clip and bar connections having insufficient friction, so while it won't fall down spontaneously if you push it around, the landing skids may fold up on you if you bump it too hard. The shape of the stripe is maintained as well on the bottom, and there's only minimal exposed anti-studs for the front angled section. Again, the designer is limited by the available inventory, but I hope that once the 6x2 wedge comes out in dark red, that will open up a logical solution for covering up this part. The model does not come with a stand like I mentioned earlier, so I did modify the underside slightly with this 2x4 white plate to accommodate Pixel Dan's stand. This is an unfortunate omission, but thankfully there are a couple of good inexpensive options out there, and I did recommend the designer include one since this model looks so good on display. Boestuds RZ-2 requires 165 elements and 671 pieces. The construction of the fighter is such that there really isn't a whole lot of depth to the subassemblies, and the piece count is, in my opinion, very efficient. As such, I only have one major and one minor recommendation for substitution. The major one are the 6 hinge plate 1x2 with 2 fingers on end, part 4276B, and the 6 hinge plate 1x2 with 3 fingers on end, part 4275B, both specified in black. These are of course the older style of fingered hinges and are useful for both stud reversal in a 5 stud length, as well as for creating angles without increasing the thickness of an assembly, as these hinges maintain their one plate thickness. These are used in steps 22 and 51 to create the hull taper, and steps 146 and 195 in the engines. Happily, these are all completely hidden and can thus be any color. Black isn't terribly expensive to begin with, but changing the color of those to not applicable in your Bricklink wanted list should reduce your costs and hopefully your store count. These are really handy pieces to have on hand in general, and I always try and buy a bunch of them if I see a store with available stock for a good price. Since these hinges are retired, they're going to be Bricklink purchases anyway, but you're going to realize the most savings ordering the bulk of the elements directly from LEGO's Pick-a-Brick service. Pick-a-Brick orders over $35 total qualify for free shipping, and if you spend more than $14 in the bestseller and standard categories, all of the handling fees are waived. Certain elements in this model, like the 2x3 plate in dark red, and the 3x2 wedge plates in dark red, are inexplicably expensive on Bricklink, but readily available from Pick-a-Brick. I use the Brick Hunter extension to check the entire parts list against the Pick-a-Brick inventory. Be sure to check out my video on Brick Hunter if you haven't already or you don't know how to use it. In mid-October 2023, all but 7 elements, 2 of them being the hinges, were available from Pick-a-Brick, and you'll see in the conclusion how much I was able to save by ordering directly from LEGO. Finally, the one minor suggestion I found helped me was seeing if the windscreen 7x4x2 round, part 30384 in trans brown, this is the new Bricklink name for what used to be called trans black, is cheaper in trans clear like I've used here. It's specified in trans brown, and usually there isn't a huge price difference, but if you're okay with the aesthetic, then it may save you a store, and I think I had the trans clear one available already. Boestuds RZ-2 instructions consist of 241 steps with each part or subassembly added in each step outlined in teal against a white background. Before working on this review, I provided extensive feedback to Boestuds, and much to my delight, we had a most productive dialogue about the issues I had. Needless to say, I think this is great for anyone looking to build this model, and after going through the changes, all of my concerns were fully addressed. The revised version with the instructions should go at a very nice pace without any poor viewing angles. There are also some additional explanatory notes that help the builder out in certain steps that are just a bit more tricky to figure out by looking at the graphic. The build is very fun, and Boestuds uses a wide range of what I would consider advanced techniques to shape the model. It took me about 2.5 hours start to finish without any sorting ahead of time. As such, I think this model is best suited for experienced mock builders, as some of the connections and the relative fragility of the model during construction might be frustrating for those tackling this as their first custom model. But experienced builders will definitely enjoy this build. The model is sturdy enough for some moderate swooshing, but it's primarily intended for display. Luckily, the back of the fighter behind the cockpit and between the engines is quite solid, and this is the obvious spot to hold it. Literally, this whole section right here is just solid plastic from top to bottom, so you can squeeze on this as hard as you need to without any worrying. Like other A-Wings, the length of the engines may make it difficult to get one's hands in there, but you can also put your thumb on top and kind of cradle it from underneath like I'm doing now. And you can't hear any like creaking or anything like that, so unless my hands bump the engines, nothing's going to really fall apart. That said, there are a couple of delicate areas. I wouldn't try moving the cannons too much, like I said earlier. It's fairly hollow in the front section of the cockpit here, so I wouldn't apply pressure anywhere around here. These small sections on either wing, right behind the cannons, are a bit delicate, and these are actually kind of inconvenient to replace, so I would be a little bit wary of those. And finally, this little area behind the cockpit can come off if you bump it with your finger or whatever. Don't use that to hold it. Put your thumb on the tile here and you'll be just fine. So overall, this model will stand up to reasonable handling. It's not going to fall apart on you if you bump it in the wrong spot, and the weak points are pretty evident during the build, and you kind of get an idea of where you can and can't handle this model. Boestuds Resistance A-Wing is an excellent model, accurately capturing a complicated shape with advanced techniques but in a manageable build. The end result is sturdy enough for light handling and will look great on display. The only thing the model lacks is a stand, but it's easily modifiable to accommodate one that you can find for free on Rebrickable or elsewhere. I mentioned in the parts section that this was very efficient in terms of parts usage, and it's actually not too bad in terms of price either. Like I said in the introduction, without any substitutions, I was getting 5 stores and $78 without shipping and tax, or about $113 with shipping and tax. With the hinge substitutions, I got 3 stores and $76 without shipping and tax, or about $99 with shipping and tax. And then ordering everything from Pick-a-Brick that I could, my Pick-a-Brick total was $54, which includes tax, but no shipping and handling because I met the thresholds in both the bestseller and standard categories. The remaining elements I got from one Bricklink store for $6 without shipping and tax, or about $12 with shipping and tax. The total was therefore $66, or $47 less than I would have paid if I had only gone with Bricklink. Instructions for this model cost $10 and are available from Rebrickable. You get instructions for both the red and the blue versions. There is one quirk with the Rebrickable inventory, and that the parts list includes all the parts for both the red and the blue fighters, so I'll need to contact Boestuds about that, but either way there will be a link to those instructions in the description below. Thanks as always for watching my review of Boestuds RZ-2 A-Wing. If you've built this model, you have something to share that I left out, or have a question about something I didn't cover, please leave your thoughts below in the comments. Remember to subscribe, leave the video a like or a comment, and follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. Each subscription, comment, and like helps increase the channel's visibility, and I greatly appreciate your support. I hope to see you back next time.